Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Success Sampath interacting with you. Do you want to become IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS? We Unacademy, with top educators of India and meticulously designed quality content, we are waiting for you, waiting to shape you. Once you enroll yourself in Unacademy, ladies and gentlemen, you will undergo a great learning experience. You know very well about Unacademy. This is India's largest and the best online education platform. What are all the benefits you are likely to get once you enroll yourself in Unacademy? Ladies and gentlemen, if that is your question, yes, we have got daily live classes. You can chat with your educator and you can engage in all-round discussions, especially productive discussions. And you can also ask all your genuine doubts and you can participate in the answer polls also. All these things you can do while sessions going on. And you got structured courses based on UPSC examination pattern and syllabus too, so that you never get deviated from the expected framework. It is not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, and it's not what you deliver, rather how do you deliver. For that we have got evaluation mechanism, ladies and gentlemen, that will test you, that where you stand in terms of preparation for UPSC. By conducting regular mock tests, quiz programs, you get detailed analysis, the report based on your performance, and you will come to know where you are strong, where you are weak, and even the time you consume in solving a particular question, you come to know. Once you enroll yourself in Unacademy, ladies and gentlemen, you got access to unlimited, that live and recorded videos. You can learn from anywhere, anytime. Not only that, whatever may be your electronic device, whether it is mobile phone or say laptop, even desktop, so you can have access to all these benefits. For that, what you have to do, please download Unacademy learning app immediately. Whether it is Android or iOS, ladies and gentlemen, once you download, that you are going to access all the benefits. Who is this interacting with you, ladies and gentlemen? If you ask me, this is Success Sampath from Chennai. Got the unique experience of that exposed to the field of engineering, management and legal education, with 25 years of experience in the field of coaching, shaping the careers of civil service aspirants. With my team, I could witness 250 plus results as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS. All my kids are working in different parts of India and abroad as well. And what is the vision of mine, if you ask me? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, to provide career solution, especially by enabling youths of India. Fortunately, this particular vision of mine is completely in alignment with, just a minute, completely in alignment with, the very Unacademy's vision. So we are working together to shape you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is that way. It's not only me, ladies and gentlemen, and there are other, the top educators, more than 100 top educators of India, part of Unacademy, waiting to shape you, sculpt you. Under UPSC Civil Service Examination, you got more than 15,000 courses, subject-specific module and duration-specific module. Under UPSC Civil Service Examination, ladies and gentlemen, we have devised two major programs. One is Plus, another one is Iconic. What is this Plus? You got regular live classes, test series, unlimited practice sessions, and also structured schedule mechanism. You can, that choose either 12 months program or 24 months program according to your convenience and budget. And you can also use my referral code, say Success, to avail 10% discount. But we strongly recommend this Iconic program. It has got more advantages than this Plus program. Why? The unique feature part of this Iconic program, ladies and gentlemen, you will be allotted a personal mentor, a personalized coach, and who will understand your nature and will be suggesting you study planner accordingly. And also you will be trained every day in terms of answer writing practices. Not only that, the very feedback what you get will be very personalized in nature. Here too you have 12 months program, 24 months program, and you please use my referral code, say Success, to avail 10% discount. Technically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, you end up paying mere 80 to 100 rupees if you calculate in terms of per day basis. It's not even the consumption towards your evening snacks expenditure, but you ensure your career. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is right time to enter into our purpose, the very purpose of the today's interaction. This is going to be, the discussion is part of IR, international relations. There may be some of the newcomers also for this particular the discussion, of course, the virtual learning. Well what is IR. Like individuals interaction, it's going to be the interaction among the global nations, the international, otherwise the outcome may be the international state system. But it is not centered around one particular aspect. That you got variety of aspects taken into account, whether it is restructuring international organization, as we are witnessing 75th year of the United Nations organization, where our Prime Minister Modi also suggesting that the restructuring of United Nations organization, especially by accommodating G4 countries and making it more relevant to the purpose of the establishment of that amicable peace in the world. Right, it is that way. Not only that, so even in terms of that addressing India's energy security, or that not only that, maybe the energy security in terms of the peaceful use of nuclear energy. Not only that, maybe the given tropical position, we are blessed with that, probably we can explore solar energy and renewable energy resources. And even it may be in terms of import of crude oil. Of course that adds more carbon in the atmosphere. That's a different story, because that has got fluctuation in the inflation in India, the impact, the hydrocarbons that moves the nation, the crude oil prices at the international level, which has got its own impact at the domestic level in terms of inflation. And otherwise, that why this IR, if at all you are asking me that particular question, ladies and gentlemen, out of India's GDP, 50% of the contribution from the globe, in terms of FDI, in terms of remittances, in terms of our the export. Ladies and gentlemen, it has got its own relevance. Not only that, it may be the cooperation in terms of technological, of course, as we say, trade, maybe free trade agreement, most favored nation status we extend, and scientific and cultural cooperation, as we said, and maybe our own Indian diaspora in different parts of the world. That's what Prime Minister Modi is that foreign policy speaking that way. It is economic diplomacy, that the diaspora diplomacy, retail diplomacy, yoga diplomacy, of course cultural diplomacy. And beyond that, in the foreign policy, you also witness from mere defensive mechanism to we started playing proactive role. Otherwise, the approach is in such a way. You just observe what's happening at the global affairs, infuse energy, then play the role. That has become strategy. And given that very well, India is that a big market, the demand, and beyond the demographic dividend, the democracy, largest democracy, of course, we talk about. The demographic dividend, we say the youngest population, the aging world. And up to 2008, we were heading towards double-digit GDP. Of course, we have got problem in terms of economic front. The front prior to COVID also. Even it's not only for India. Even among the BRIC countries, the same is the issue. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Not only that, various policies and programs on the part of that different international institutions. In what way it is going to have impact on India, the domestic concerns, and neighborhood first policy. And connectivity to Asia, the Central Asia especially we are talking about. Parallelly, we are also predicting that rise of Eurasia, like rise of China we are talking about, which has got its own impact on security affairs. Otherwise, whatever may be, any foreign leader visiting India, Indian leader visiting foreign nation, the agreement signed. Otherwise, India's contribution or any controversials. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. India's interaction with neighborhood may be landlocked or maritime, even extended neighborhood when we talk about Central Asia, or how we engage, that the superpowers, and given the fact, the trade war between USA and China, and not only that, it's almost like, the Cold War 2.0 to some extent. Otherwise, the rise of China, the bullying the neighborhood, otherwise, in what way we are going to balance that rise of China? Maybe it's one, that the process of, trapping the nation in terms of debt, by its connectivity Belt Road initiative, even the trying to poke its nose in the Indian Ocean, that region, especially in terms of its string of pearls theory, maritime Silk Road. Ladies and gentlemen, India is the only one country which did not take part because of the sovereignty consideration, well, in the Belt Road Initiative. The rest of the countries, otherwise, that our neighborhood also, that bullied in such a way, whether it is Nepal or Maldives, even, that the Sri Lanka by China. So for that purpose, that to balance that, we are inviting, otherwise we formed quadrilateral, but we are inviting United States of America to the Asia Pacific region. And also, the USA needed India's, that the support, the strategic location of India in the Indian Ocean so as to contain the very China in the South China Sea itself. Even Japan coming together. So the USA, Japan, Australia, India coming together as quadrilateral, working together so as to contain China. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So the interaction could be bilateral, or maybe in terms of engaging the regional forum like SAARC, Indian Ocean Rim countries, even BIMSTEC we are talking about. Or maybe that maybe we understand that shifting global political order as we speak, the 19th century when it is meant for the Europe, 20th century meant for the very United States of America, 21st century meant for Asia. How we are going to catch up with China, the very success story, instead of entering into the controversy, the conflicting situation. Though that the recent skirmish activities at the border, to divert the that international community's apathy towards China, the China is reacting in different ways. Whether it is poking its nose in European Union in terms of 16+1 format, trying to create that some pressure groups there, and that goes against European Union. Even among BRIC countries, that they are not very happy about China and the practice of racism during COVID situation. And also the very Russia itself, that though it is not conscious in endorsing China, it has got its own problem. As we speak, that the Russia's, that love on water, that fear on land, because, that northwards expansion of the China. And beyond that, that we talk about all these things. Even the Brazil recently suspected the China's role, especially through social network, the dissemination of information, given the COVID situation that China trying to dominate, especially the medieval mindset, the hegemonic ambition, especially through Belt Road Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, and even with Japan, very well, the Senkaku Islands over which it has got its own issue, even in the South China with all littoral states, the China's, the dominance, especially in terms of building artificial islands for its strategic purpose, and also trying to use all those choke points and stopping the international transit route, the shipment, naval shipment, ladies and gentlemen. So given all these situations, in what way? Of course, India also, that understood this change. It is not, that as we are living in the past. Of course, thanks to Panchsheel policy, thanks to non-aligned movement, but now at current situation we reject. At the same time, we are not aligning with anybody immediately, but we have got issue-based, that alliance in spite of that. So that's what even, that Union External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar's, that stand also. Right? So it is not living in the past like, in the name of strategic autonomy or non-alignment. Now, we wanted to play global role. Of course, we started playing. The next year, we are going to head World Health Organization and our own Indian interests in different parts of the world, different parts of international organizations. For that, how we engage our neighborhood first policy. So apart from act-based policy, that look-based policy or act-based policy, ladies and gentlemen, or connectivity to Central Asia, in what way we are going to engage. So this scenario, on this backdrop, this is what your international relations, ladies and gentlemen. Parallelly, that India's foreign policy completely centered around India's economy first, the domestic interest first. Right? We take care of that thing also. Right? So the Vishwa Guru, the very status that we want to re-emulate once again with other superpowers. So that the globe becomes a place for everyone. Each and every nation will have its own say. This is what your international relations, ladies and gentlemen. This is what that you got relevance here in UPSC Civil Service Examination preparation, whether it is prelims level, mains written level, even mains oral interview level. Right. So given this particular situation, how we are going to that, of course, we are so far engaged in terms of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, especially which talks about India's interest in the untapped potential on the part of Central Asia. Of course, hope it's not going to become once again like, what happened in the SARC, the complete, that summits of SARC, that marked by the conflict between India and Pakistan. Same thing, I think it's not going to happen, whether it is between India and China or India and Pakistan. We hope best out of it, ladies and gentlemen. It is also criticized in that way. Of course, that it came, that even the West perception is in such a way, it is trying to counter the NATO. Otherwise, that authoritarian powers in the Asia, that is what the West perception about Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that, that the backdrop, that I think it is right time. This is what, we are going to elaborate, that, the topic by topic. Of course, that the recent summit and the way forward. Not only that, it is that way, that what are all the aims of, that Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the very purpose. And, anti-terrorism, that structure council, we appreciate that. And India has got the victims of, that religious terrorism. We got a great say. And we want to promote peace in Afghanistan also, utilizing this forum. It's not only connectivity to Central Asia, and also, that how we are going to cope up with, rising Eurasia. When I said, 19th century Europe, 20th century USA, 21st century Asia, 22nd century may be for Africa according to one theory, 22nd century may also be for Eurasia, where rise of Eurasia, especially the untapped potentials in Central Asia by north-south, the multimodal corridor, how we are going to connect. For that we need Chabahar port, the strategic port in Iran, but of course we missed the bus. That up to Zahedin, that the very railway link we did not, maybe that is why we are criticized. Are we falling in the line of, in the toe of, the very United States of America? More inclination, more alignment towards, USA. Even under the pressure of USA, we gave up, pipeline project. So all these things we are talking about, it may be a wonderful opportunity for us by engaging this, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that, that India and Pakistan may come together further in spite of the irritants, in spite of the bad history, in spite of, the China's presence there in terms of Chinese, economic, the corridor, China-Pakistan economic corridor we are talking about. It has already detracted the very Pakistan, and that too the route through POK. It is not by someone else foreign's help that you can ensure, that your independence in the POK. That is what India's version. You have to develop infrastructure in POK so that people develop faith in you. Forget about POK. The Pakistan has got its own problem in Baloch area also. Balochistan we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that note we are talking about. So, given victims of terrorization, in what way India are going to utilize this opportunity of the Central Asia, that organization? Especially, those nations you might be aware, Shanghai Pact, Shanghai 5, all those, that erstwhile the member countries of USSR after end of the Cold War, that there came. Even China had its own interest, because Uyghur Muslims, you would have heard Uyghur Muslims, that the part of Central Asia, their connectivity, especially with, we are talking about, the even Xinjiang province of the China. So the China was worried, probably that may threaten. So want to establish connectivity there. That talk, that in the beginning, all those Central Asian countries, except Uzbekistan, even Uzbekistan also became member of this, that organization. That's why it became, Shanghai Cooperation Organization from Shanghai 5. Of course, we call, that, the very, that security, that is the main, that the concept, a part of this organization, and also the terrorism, extremism. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. So we have got, that one thing we feel very proud, maybe the presence of RATS Council, part of this, and also, that the 19th summit held, what are all the, in what way it benefited India, whether India really gained out of it, and what way, that even the heads of the government, meetings we are likely to host in future. We are looking forward. And even the very 19th summit, our Prime Minister participated the first time after his, that second tenures, that after the election, the first summit to participate. And for that, we did not, take, that the Pakistan, the fly path, rather we took, that Iran path, ladies and gentlemen. So see the situation. You're going to, that meet one particular entity, the member countries. One of the member countries, as a matter of irritant, given the fact, the bad history, the conflict, the cross-border terrorism, religious fundamentalism, trying to destabilize the neighborhood. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So all these things we are talking about, we are going to elaborate, in a concrete manner. I think it will be very appropriate time for us to move on, from this introduction. Of course, that we gave enough introduction about this, India's, the otherwise in international relations, in what way it is related to our, your preparation, UPSC Civil Service Examination. Of course, in prelims, you got the current events of international importance. You get, minimum 10 to maximum 15 questions. Very straightforward, simple questions, facts based, right? It is that way. But when it comes to, the main examination, for 50 marks, you get questions from this area. And what the spirit I shared with you, you get the quantification in terms of syllabus. Here you get two 10 marks questions, two 15 marks questions. Here you are going to write something which is descriptive in nature. It's analytical too. So with prelims, it's mere awareness part, whereas mains written, well, it is going to test your in-depth understanding. But whereas the oral interview part of, mains, of course, well, where you're going to take decision. Even at the mains, you get question, what's your opinion, comment, nowadays. So awareness, in-depth understanding or wisdom, then decision making. This is what the path, ladies and gentlemen. So the whole spirit, what we are discussing in terms of syllabus, I think it is right time. Right. So Shanghai Cooperation Organization, ladies and gentlemen, the very purpose of our interaction today. Yes, it may be part of that regional organization, because it belongs to Asia. Of course, begins with Central Asia. That now it has got 8 members. So after 5 members of the Central Asia, it incorporated even that India and Pakistan also. Though there came opposition from China, Russia was very keen in incorporating India as well as Pakistan to have regional balance. Ladies and gentlemen, so we are talking about it is that way. And also that the very summits, the Chinese influence to talk about BRI, Belt Road Initiative, as if it is, it is trying to establish the global connectivity. Of course, it is otherwise dragon sitting on planet of the earth. India was, that very open to oppose. And on sovereignty consideration, we are talking about. Not only that, that in every summit, that they never hesitate to oppose the unilateralism on the part of the world, especially going against US. And condemning, that the trade-related, war between US and China, because China happened to be part. It is China-led entity that will be appropriate to say. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. And not only that, the Iran nuclearization and associated, the sanction by USA, that time it was going on, all these things we are talking about. Yes, and all the member countries in the communique, that all the member countries decided to have trade in terms of, that their own respective currencies, but that wasn't properly, that implemented, for your kind information. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about the ramification, but how it originated. It's otherwise called Shanghai Pact. It has got its own headquarters in China. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, you call SCO. It is otherwise the Eurasian Political, Economic and Security Alliance. You understand, right? It's not Europe plus Asia, Eurasian region especially, to take care of, that international politics, of course, driven by, that economic, the factors, and also ensuring security, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. So what happened, right? Of course, 2001 in Shanghai, China, all these nations, came together, we are talking about. And that culminated, that especially Shanghai Cooperation Organization charter gave way to the formation of the entity. Ultimately, the very SCO came into force in 19th September, of course, 2003. Ladies and gentlemen. But that the very, that initiation, started in the year 1992 itself. Several rounds of negotiations, more than 22 types of, negotiations they had to reach this level. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not only that. So the original 5 nations, very well, that's what we spoke, except Uzbekistan. It also got incorporated later. The 2000, the 2 we are talking about. So that's why, that the original Shanghai 5 group we are talking about, that got culminated in the year 1996 itself. Of course, we are talking about today with 8 countries, apart from, that Uzbekistan added 6, then India, Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, it has got its own, observer, dialogue partners also, part of this entity. Very well, up to 2005, India was, that very Since 2005, India was very observer only. By 2017 only, we acquired membership. When they opened up, especially to incorporate some other nations also, with view of expanding to address the concerns of Asia otherwise. So, well, that's what we spoke already. India, Pakistan joined the very SCO, that 2017, especially the Kazakhstan. Of course, we talk about Astana Summit. It has got its own, that heads of state council. That's a powerful body, the supreme decision-making body, like General Assembly of United Nations Organization. It has got every year meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, part of, that Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And this is what I think, hope you will understand. You can, the Central Asian region, of course, you talk about the China, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So the very, that supreme body meeting, once in a year and adopting, the decisions on guidelines on all important matters. Of course, as we said, economic, political and security affairs we're talking about. So, and also not only that, military exercises, even part of the, the anti-terrorism structure, all members participated in the joint military exercises. The military exercises are regularly conducted among the members, especially to promote cooperation, coordination against terrorism and other external threats, and to that maintain regional peace and stability. Here what we are talking about, Afghanistan, we can have peace in Afghanistan region by properly engaging that the region, the forum. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, very well, it is largest regional organization in the world in terms of its geographical spread, coverage, even the very population, covering that 3/5 of Eurasian continent we are talking about. It is at the end of that Europe and the beginning of Asia, very well, covering Central Asia portions too, the untapped potential. It's going to be for 22nd century, how we are going to engage. It has become instrumental, and nearly half of human population, ladies and gentlemen. If you want statistics for that, this 8-nation regional grouping, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, has got the 42% of the world population and 20% of GDP, ladies and gentlemen. 20% of global GDP, the share, you understand? It is almost more than European Union, that economic size. Yes, so India as an observer, that's what we say, that since 2005 acquired, that membership, very well. You have, in this context, you have to understand. And you can also ask me, so like, what is the goal, aim on the part of that Shanghai Cooperation Organization? Of course, brief we say. That political, economic, security, and security, it has got all round, and economic also we are talking about, that in what way the trade can be promoted, all the stuff. So to establish Shanghai Cooperation Organization is to generate cooperation between member nations on what, that resolving border issues. Of course, between India and China, you got border issues. And you got security concerns, that not only India and that the China, we are talking about India-Pakistan border issues along Bakmohan line, that with China along Radcliffe, that boundary line. Of course, you call that line of that actual control in China, that line of control with Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen. It's that way. So not only that, joint military cooperation, security affairs once again. So countering terrorism, that's why anti-terrorism structure you have. And also sharing intelligence in such a way. Here what the issue? And can you expect the Pakistan to come forward and share the information? Otherwise, India also will be forced to share information that goes against India's strategic security. It may favor again that Pakistan and China. So these are all the controversial things. How come you can expect the very China, which is said to be the most opaque nation in the world, and also the very Pakistan, one of the rogue nations in the world, of course, that maybe, that from its past history, the very economic cooperation, in what way it can benefit. Of course, that here too, it's not a proper gelling. All nations are traveling in different directions. That's what we are talking about. And also the cultural cooperation. Even Prime Minister Modi ji, when he was participating, especially the 19th summit of, the very Shanghai Cooperation Organization, he never hesitated to, bring the cultural connectivity, especially he brought Buddha, even the 13th century Islamic poet, the Persian poet, Rumi. In what way, that both, that of course that the historical significant personalities, a prelude to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and that the connectivity in the very Asia, ladies and gentlemen. So it is that way we are talking about, for Muslim nations, of course, the Islamic countries, the Rumi, for of course, the China, you have to understand, I think, that Buddhism, of course, we have got shared history. The very birth of Buddhism in India, it spread to different parts of the world, including Southeast Asia, well. And even Bodhidharma, that from south, down south, Kanchipuram, who went there, and he's, that one of the venerated, that the Buddhists in China, well. So that is the connectivity, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. So the cultural cooperation, and in spite of that, the very, that Shanghai Cooperation Organization is criticized, that why? Because it is used by member states only to shield each other from the, international criticism regarding human rights violation. Because whether you take Pakistan, whether even Afghanistan, that it's not Afghanistan we are talking about, even the very China especially. So all round human rights violations, that's why the authoritative nations, they want to otherwise, formalize their powers properly not recognized. It is that way the criticism, that we are talking about. So well known for human rights violations, that is the perception also, the global perception, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, this is right, that time for, that you to get exposed to the thing you cherish also on the part of this Shanghai Cooperation Organization. What is that? It is called Regional Anti-Terrorist, that structure, anti-terrorism structure otherwise. RATS you call. So which got established, that the RATS got established in the year 2004 itself. You have to understand, it's a permanent organ to promote cooperation among the member states against what? It's self-explanatory. Anti-terrorism, against terrorism, separatism, and extremism. Ladies and gentlemen, people never come and agree over the definition of terrorism, very well. But of course, somewhat, that, think that harms and kills innocent civilians on that grounds, or anybody harboring for this particular purpose also could be declared, terrorists. Of course, if that is the case, very well, China, the cross-border terrorism, that the very, not only that, very Pakistan we are talking about, the cross-border terrorism, especially brainwashing, the Jammu Kashmir youth, especially to go against India, and to cause destabilization especially. And the remnants of that the Mountbatten plan, how we, and even the Mumbai attack, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and even Pathankot, the attack we are talking about, in all these things, that the very Uri, and we are talking about Uri, that's the Josh, it's our success story. Not only that, the Balakot region we entered. That's why India's defense policy is no more defensive; it is also offensive. Almost like NATO countries, we started practicing preemptive strikes. We suspect. But this is, that of course, second strike capability only. You can't bring under no first use. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. So India is a victim of, that this terrorism. And even China has got its own problem because of the, Xinjiang province where Uyghur Muslims, it has to understand. Of course, that the very sectarian violence, that's well known in the case of, that Islamic countries, even IS we are talking. Right. So the Pakistan's waging war against, the neighborhood, of course, you got Pakistan Taliban and separate Taliban, Tehreek-e-Taliban, you're all talking about. So it's not, the Islamic countries, they themselves not free from, that the victimization from, it may be sectarian violence between Shia and Sunni community. That's what we are talking about. The IS want to establish Sunni caliphate. Of course, in place of Al-Qaeda, today you speak about ISIS. The whole Middle East peace process, of course, that it's to some extent got, that we suppress, but it is resurfacing once again in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. So the terrorism and separatism also, that separatism, of course, engaging, the people, the anti-nationals inside another country, poking the nose, that nose ultimately, that and separating the people, from that particular country, and otherwise they will be going against. So that's what, Jammu Kashmir well now. Now China also trying its parts, that through that, the northeastern countries, northeastern states, part of India we are talking about. And given, that the homogeneity in terms of the Mongoloids race. Ladies and gentlemen, it is, that otherwise the investments from China, especially to honor Naxalite presence even in Manipur. Manipur has become a new theater. For that they get the support, and even they indulge in all those, the drug trafficking to finance their operations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. Even, that in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, especially the 18th summit, that how the youths of all these member countries can be protected from the drug menace. That was also a resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So the first joint military exercise of this Shanghai Cooperation Organization, namely it was called the Sari Arka, we are talking about, that especially held in 2019, we are talking about. That was announced, that part of, that RATS Council, especially the 34th meeting, I think you are aware, that held in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. It's that way, remember, that all members of, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization participated in the joint counter-terrorism exercise, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the thing you can cherish part of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, given the fact, from Indian angle also, even rest of the member countries too, right? That's why it has become very, it's the cherished as achievement on the part of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's also very significant for India, given, the common victimization because of the terrorism, separatism, even extremism. Because why I said extremism, the ideological extremism, the communism, of course, Naxalism in India, the northeastern, the states and its presence, from, the Manipur, and almost 15 states got affected, somewhat we could control. It has gone. The new theatre has become, up to Kerala, especially the border states, Malappuram area and all, influence we are talking about. That's a new trend on the part of Naxalism, ladies and gentlemen. So they should not be supported. Here all those, very well, the communist parties, that they will be in favor of, and there is also, the fear, otherwise, that they are financed by, supported by, that the neighborhood Chinese, of course, the very China. This is all the threat to national security, national integration, well. So all these things we are talking about, there comes crucial role played by RATS Council, anti-terrorism structure, ladies and gentlemen. So New Delhi's core goal, if you ask me, in the region is to have stable Afghanistan with little Pakistani influence as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we expect. Even AFPAC policy on the part of USA, it's utter failure, very well. So the United States of America want to attack, that Al-Qaeda presence in that region. For that, that it utilized those days I'm talking about, after September 11 attack. It was utilizing, the very Pakistan as if it's one of its base. But what will happen? Pakistan will get all round aid from USA and parallelly, that supporting all these, terrorists from Afghanistan region. So it is literally speaking, that they will get biryani from Pakistan and they'll become very strong. Now they are ready to, get attack from, the USA, ready to face the attack. But the biryani they ate only from Pakistan, that's nothing but the aid from, that USA. So USA feeding, that all those terrorists with biryani and attacking, it's almost like that. It's a miserable failure. AFPAC policy we are talking about, very well. So that's why we want to have little, that influence of this Pakistan, that region, but we want to have stable Afghanistan or peaceful Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, even the recent, measures from, the United States of America. Otherwise, it should be from within. It's not from external. That's what we are talking about. Afghanistan's peace should be decided by Afghan people, not by someone else, not by third party. It is inside out, not outside in. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you understand. So this regional anti-terrorist, that cooperation we are talking about with Central Asian states is of value for India. As I said earlier, the significant, very important. Why? Because when it reduces the capabilities or at least movements of, the various, smuggling activities of Taliban and other radical, the groups of, Afghanistan. We got, Durand line, the connection with Afghanistan, very well. So all those, that especially the northwestern portion, you might be aware, Harkatul Ansar, Hizbul Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed, even, of course, now in place of Al-Qaeda, you got ISIS and in the Middle East. So all these, organizations, how terrorists are making money, by drug trafficking. The Golden Crescent, Golden Triangle, you come to know because of the opium, the trade, even the opium plantation, that the cultivation is being done in those areas, ladies and gentlemen. So it is that way the smuggling activities in terms of that equipments, of course weapons, and beyond that drug we are talking about. So from this perspective, cooperation with Central Asian republics that border Afghanistan is certainly important for India, ladies and gentlemen, right? I think it is right time, that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization 19th Summit, of course, as we said, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's, that after re-election for the second tenure, the first international event it became. But I told you the story where, we did not use Pakistani airspace, especially to fly to, that SCO summit, though Pakistan is happened to be one of the member states along with us. But rather, especially it happened, Kyrgyzstan, you might be aware. And instead, that the very, this is what the Indian government statement we are talking about, that we took the route of, Oman and Iran, very well. Our Prime Minister participating in the very summit, you come to know. See, this is what the perception. Why SCO? That's what I said earlier. It is Eastern, it is Asia's NATO, people call otherwise. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The countries, bordering, that the very Atlantic Ocean, especially under the leadership of, the United States of America, to counter the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw in Poland, there came military alliance under the leadership of USSR. When the whole world was, under Cold War, it's NATO versus Warsaw Pact. Of course, India do not want to be part of it. Of course, that's why, Afro-Asian Conference, that all these things, non-aligned movement, well, all those. Thanks to Light of Asia, but it has become irrelevant. That's totally different story. Yes. So this SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, is perceived by the Western world, it is NATO of Asia. Otherwise, to counter, that the very NATO, because any one of the member nations of NATO, if it is attacked, the whole NATO, that will be trying and attacking you. That is what you see, whether it is Iraq, Middle East peace process, whatever it may be, even after Twin Tower attack, it is, that it is war on, that globe. Only when you attack USA or any one of the member nations of, that NATO. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. But SCO it's not an alliance of the East or an anti-NATO, as some predicted, that would become years ago. That's not happening because, given all this, that the controversies, it's not properly gelling also. That's a very bad story we are talking about. In what way we can, that make it more relevant? That's what, that the West Foreign Secretary, of course, speaking in such a way, right, by properly engaging the Central Asia, because we've got our own umbilical cord connectivity with Central Asia from the past. So that's, optimism from our own, External Affairs Ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking. So being India, that as its member will allow country to take effective action, that in combating terrorism and security related issues as well. This is what, that 19th summit, that the essence and all we are talking about. It is the constant, that the principle, it will get reflected in all summits. As India and China are most populous countries, Shanghai Cooperation Organization also has the largest population coverage. I think, we said already, around 40% of the global population. This SCO is responsible for, that the very 20% of, that the global share, global trade. So after joining, the very India into, the SCO, it expected there will be rise in the regional political groups, trade and negotiations. But it is not going, as expected, but to some extent, we are trying to fix it. Even the very 2018, the SCO summit that happened in Qingdao, China, we are talking about where I said, the among member countries, that they can have their own, the trade in their own respective, the currencies. And that's the killer communique we are talking about. And also how to contain the menace of drug trafficking. And how come, that we can, that's what, that by colluding more with, the Pakistan, we can, that have leverage in Central Asia trade. And also, that cope up with, rise of the very Eurasia. Not only that, in that 18th summit also we spoke, the China introduced the very Belt Road Initiative and India opposing that because of its sovereignty consideration, security consideration. And also the very 18th summit also spoke in terms of, going against unilateralism in the world, especially USA, want to create multilateral world. So these are all constant talks, that whatever may be the, that is what template like, that agenda we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So it is that way, of course, the very specific, but the region, of course, Central Asia, we are talking about. So there comes, what we, is India really gaining or benefiting out of its presence in Shanghai Cooperation Organization? There comes a lot of, questions ultimately, ladies and gentlemen. So like, that can the Shanghai Cooperation Organization take stand on Kashmir dispute? That, that India would like, given that the China is sure to take, Pakistan side, ladies and gentlemen. Forget about, the very recent United Nations organization where, that Pakistan complained about India. India is indulging in cross-border terrorism, destabilizing peace in our country. That's a complaint box. Ladies and gentlemen, but we never say, we don't want third-party mediation when it comes to India-Pakistan conflict, of course, the disputes. Terrorism and dialogue will not go together. First stop cross-border terrorism, then only dialogue. We keep on emphasizing whatever the Prime Minister is only changing. The statement never changes. And we don't want third-party mediation. We would like to solve the very issue bilaterally. This is what our stand. So in spite of that, even if you initiate, definitely, that's what happened in Sri Lanka also. When we voted against Sri Lanka, especially favoring very US-sponsored motion for the, that war crime, the violation of, human rights, UN Human Rights Council. When we, favored USA but went against, that Sri Lanka twice. But what happened, that we want to engage Sri Lanka. So ultimately what happened? We actually, abstained from voting the third time. The very, that how Sri Lanka can be tried for the war crime, the crimes, all of it's happened in, the finishing of LTT, well, it's only ethnic clash. But that time, third time, we abstained from, that voting that favored, Sri Lanka. But that time, China and Pakistan voted against, that Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the thing, that enemy is enemy, friend. It is that way. The equations we are talking about. So very foreign policy it's not static. It's highly volatile. It's very dynamic, that subject we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. So there comes another question. Can the Shanghai Cooperation Organization take the stand on the border dispute between India and China? Forget about Pakistan, Kashmir dispute with Pakistan. The border dispute between, even now we have got a problem. Given that, that none of, that Shanghai Cooperation Organization's other members have the capability to stand up, that to the Beijing, in such, because, it is the very entity, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is led by China, ladies and gentlemen. You might be aware, that's the initiative of China, the Shanghai Five, the China from the inception, well, the Shanghai Pact. Ladies and gentlemen, when that is the scenario, how come it may happen? So it is yet another fora, that multilateral fora, otherwise regional fora we are talking here. The same is the scene. As developed countries trying to, behave like cartel to exploit, developing underdeveloped countries at the international fora, same is the case. It is another cartel at the regional level. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what the accusation. So can the Shanghai Cooperation Organization actually help India in its dealing with China in any significant way? Forget about border dispute. And given, the China's opaque and communist, India, democratic nation, but China, very communist country, of course, human rights violation, environmental degradation, corruption, the controlling media, you don't know what's happening, and also bullying with others' neighborhood to divert the attention. What happened in the Wuhan, originated, the very virus, coronavirus, well. Even, that World Health Organization, became submissive, did not acknowledge. Forget about that. What's your moral responsibility? You should have shared that information with the rest of the world so that it would have given some, alert signal. At least they would have protected, right? So much of questions. How come you can expect? In what way this SCO can, help India in dealings with China, especially given, forget about that. Now what's happening? The very aggression, the loss of, that our that lives of, that our own people, especially the soldiers, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we are, that to disengage, the very, even the finance minister's level talk, of course, we are talking about the 5 ways with which even we are going to take up the same issue in the forthcoming G20 summit in the November also. So what are India's primary goals with regard to Central Asia? There comes another question. What you are going to do given all these, anomalies, facts? Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Arguably, that its interests are to have its economic relations with the region, especially the Central Asian region, flourishing, and also to find it ways to enhance the connections and to cooperate in combating terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, there should be, the strong flourishing of, that Central Asian economy, so that we have to reap the benefit, especially through the North-South, that multimodal connectivity with Central Asia. And we have to, that open up once again, bypassing, Pakistan, good. But what about, that to enter into Afghanistan, through Afghanistan, especially, we have to reopen the dialogue once again. We should not yield to the pressure from United States of America. And because, the US also to some extent will be, in a position to listen, very India, well, because when it was imposing, the US was imposing sanction against, that the Russia and, the very Iran, it gave waiver to, the very India, well, whether it is import of oil, whether it is S4 tanks from Russia's import, from Indian angle I'm talking about, especially under CAATSA, countering American enemies through Sanctions Act. So definitely you can reopen, and also the pipeline project we gave up, we have to reinitiate. Even under the 18th summit, that's what. Why can't, the two-way connectivity between India and Pakistan, especially vis-a-vis from Pakistan to Central Asia, that will enhance more relationship. Why you think in terms of us? Why not? Because we want to play global role. We have to keep house in order. We have to, enjoy the confidence of, the neighborhood first. Ladies and gentlemen, when that is the scenario, so not only that, the primary obstacle of New Delhi's cooperation with Central Asia is the geographic reality. That's what we are talking about. From Kandla, that port to via sea, then you reach, Chabahar port, then rail link, then road. So multimodal connectivity we are talking about. So geographical reality, of course, we can't take, because neighborhood Pakistan, we bypass. But parallelly, the Chinese investment in Gwadar port in that region. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand. So that is the thing we bypass, but we take through, the Iran, Chabahar port we spoke, the strategic, the connectivity to Central Asia. So this, the geographic reality that is separated from the region by hostile Pakistan, of course, in the neighborhood. And also the very unstable Afghanistan, where Pakistan has got its own say. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So one of India's the grand strategic plans to find land route to Afghanistan and hopefully beyond Central Asia, especially, to establish connection through Iran's, the Chabahar. What we spoke, we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This is the connectivity, of course, and beyond that. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is not helpful in this regard. Why? As Afghanistan and Iran are merely observers. Ladies and gentlemen, they are not member countries. Because apart from 5, Uzbekistan joined, we too, India and Pakistan in 2017. And also there are observers, dialogue partners. Of course, Afghanistan and Iran, they are observers only. So any benefits from Shanghai Cooperation Organization are cancelled. Definitely. Why? Because of China and Pakistan. That is what international opinion. So that is what I'm saying. It should not become yet another SARC. Ladies and gentlemen. It should not become, yet another BRICS also. BRICS also traveling in different path. Because, the complete, the differences. It's not a good story. And that too, that the main accusation on China. Ladies and gentlemen, India avoided direct confrontation. That what happened with China, very well. In spite of the thing, that even only in the Doklam, that time, that is the thing. Xi Jinping, that ultimately, that enjoying friendship with Prime Minister Modi ji, Sabarmati Ashram in his visit. But meanwhile, the Doklam, that the Chinese army entering there. So we wanted to avoid the direct confrontation, very well. It is that way. But that happened in Doklam. But recently, direct confrontation happening, that the place they occupied, that sometimes without weapons, that they fought in the beginning, but loss of lives, very well, the way with which, the very violent mechanism with which are, the soldiers killed, the very tools they utilized, the nails with, wooden nails, ladies and gentlemen, that's, that it's not open war, of course, it is, that the third rate, street fight like it happened. So, that involved, that India involved itself in proxy wars of, that influence with China in the region, very well, that's what, that Nepal and Sri Lanka, Maldives, somewhat we are containing the presence of, that our advancement of China in Sri Lanka, the Chinese investments in Sri Lanka, well, Colombo and Hampantota, we are countering that, of course, our investments in Triconamalli, we want to contain, we want to stop that. and we want to take that very that Sri Lanka on board. We gave $1 billion line of credit also, and we also that the first country, the Sri Lanka, to ink civilian nuclear cooperation agreement with none other India, and the cultural cooperation too. Prime Minister Modi ji visited the very country after a long time, So of course the Sri Lanka saved, but the point is the influence of China in Nepal, of course the Kalapani, Lipu Lake region, even the Maldives. We have to be very wary. It's not open war between India and China in these nations, but Nepal and Maldives, very well. And Nepal too, to some extent, that got bullied by India. Of course, only in now security relations we are talking about. Even the past economic blockade associated issues also be fixed. I think we expect Prime Minister Modi ji once again visit the country to fix this, that issue too. Yeah, definitely. Ayushi Saini, I have Telegram channel. You can reach the Telegram channel, as Success Sampath or Sampath Irvengitam. Welcome Ayushi, welcome Madhavi. Yeah, you please, listen the lecture. That's what we are interacting. So the Shanghai Pact, of course, we are talking about the very Shanghai Cooperation Organization, otherwise called this way, very well, that after the Cold War, after the collapse of, USSR, those countries, that under the leadership of, the China came, the Shanghai Five. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we are talking about. Later addition Uzbekistan, and later, India and Pakistan, that now 8-member nation, that the very Shanghai Cooperation Organization, especially for political, economic and security. I think, hope Madhavi, you would have got this basic information. After this end of the session also, you can watch the video from the beginning so that you will understand better. I think it is right time. Ladies and gentlemen, so enhanced cooperation with friendly nations of Indo-Pacific region especially. So that's what I said, that not outspokenly against, the China's rising presence, but we want to have, Asia-Pacific region should be free from, that the influence of China. Our Indian Ocean is a zone of peace, should not be disturbed by the China and its, the maritime Silk Road, ladies and gentlemen, or string of pearls theory. And while extending, that highly, that raised diplomatic hand of friendship in bilateral relations with China, of course, that see, on the one side, we have got all these irritants. Parallelly, we also engaged the Wuhan summit and even the Mamallapuram, recently, that, and the very, the Chinese premier, how got, that given hospitality by the Prime Minister of India, well. So this is how you see, on the one side conflict, other side we are engaging. We can't say it is very open war, otherwise proxy war. It is that way. This is what, the diplomatic relationship is all about this. So New Delhi wants to keep talking to Beijing and avoiding direct conflict as much as possible. But in spite of, that lot of efforts, that how, the things are moving ahead, well. So India's attempts to contain China's influence in the region by cooperating with, as I told you, the South Asian neighbors, especially the like-minded states, that the, it's you're talking about, the Japan. And also, that we also bring rope in France to some extent, but under quadrilateral, very well, US, Japan, India and Australia in the Asia-Pacific region to contain, that the very China in the South China Sea. Ladies and gentlemen, the very Pakistan, the Islamabad will take care of its own goals, the same region, within, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, how? With the support of China. It also raises the question of intelligence sharing. We spoke in the beginning itself. How do you expect Pakistan to share intelligence? Will it happen? Otherwise, the China and Pakistan combined together, if they expect us to share the information very openly with them, in what way it will have its own impact on India's security, strategic affairs? All these things, that coming into the picture. So the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's anti-terrorist structures, that could lead to India sharing data with Pakistan and China. So here we are, that very critical. It is hardly influential format, that of divided states. This is once again the criticism. It is hardly influential. They can't exert, that influence at the global fora, whatever may be, given that their own, that almost same thing happening among, that the BRICS nations also. That's a concern again. Ladies and gentlemen, it is talking about. So it is very hardly influential. Otherwise, the format of divided states, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. An international organization with negligible achievements and uncertain the future. See, it's quite pessimistic. Negligible achievements. And sir, why you are talking? Because we are going to host heads of governments meetings. After India became a member, this is going to be the grand, that the hosting. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the very purpose. That's why. And we are going to talk, that a lot of the context related aspects. So what is the way forward? Sir, this is the issue. This is the problem. We expected one thing. What's happening is totally different. In what way we can make, that this particular entity more relevant, or how it's going to live up to the expectations, the very purpose. When that is the scenario, of course, India has been focusing on expanding cooperation with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in spite of all these difficulties. And also, that, as I told you, right, we are going to host summit of the Shanghai Cooperation, Council of Heads of the Government, the 30th November. That the heads of the states attended by the Prime Minister from China, the Xi Jinping. But whereas, of course, Chinese president. But whereas the heads of the governments, even in the, the 19th summit, of course, we are talking about the heads of the government attended by are, the Honorable, Rajnath Singh, the Union Minister we are talking about. Same way, what we expect, of course, the Chinese Prime Minister will be participating. It is that way. You got two different entities. The focus will be on especially the contribution of, the contribution to the trade and economic agenda of the influential grouping. As I said in the beginning, political, economic, and strategic. So India's civilizational links with, that Central Asian nation, Central Asian nations, very well. That's why whether it is Buddhism or, that the Persia, even, that the Khyber Bolan from Central Asia, the Aryans, came, we are talking about, and the trade. Ladies and gentlemen, apart from that, the Rumi, of course, the Persian, the scholar, the poet, we are talking about, and the very Buddhism in the China. So the India's civilizational links with Central Asian countries, apart from the shared history, of course, bitter history with Pakistan, and that, of course, very irritant relationship with, the very China. Forget about cultural connectivity. So what is that? That is why, that our external affairs ministry, that especially the West sector started, that making statement this way, acknowledging the strength of these umbilical bonds. Umbilical in Tamil, Thoppul Kudi Uravu. The connectivity between the kid and mother, the same way, the umbilical bonds. India's growing economic potential and vast experience and expertise in building institutional, of course, we were part of BRICS New Development Bank, and we are also one of the important countries, part of, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, and part of BRICS, part of SAARC, part of, the Indian Ocean Rim countries, and BIMSTEC, what not. Ladies and gentlemen, so even, that we are properly acknowledged by USA that, that United States of America is in favor of expanding G8 countries so as to accommodate, India there. You just see Trump openly recommending this. And also the very World Health Organization, especially the COVID crisis time, how it behaved. Of course, that India taking leadership from next year. Ladies and gentlemen, we take leadership, that when it comes to reforming or restructuring international organizations with the right, that the merit principles. Yes, it is that way we are talking about. So India has got its own, what is that? The growing economic potential, vast experience, and also expertise in building institutional capabilities that can add greater value to Shanghai Cooperation Organization's ongoing projects, and share the best practices in newer areas to forge common vision for the region. This is the point. This is very calculated statement. On the one side, you are boasting, that especially addressing India's strength. At the same way, in what way? The way forward. In spite of all these, the negativities, the troublesomes, the divided nations conglomeration, the China led, of course, that all nations, this is the thing we are talking about, but the potential on the part of Central Asia, untapped potential. So that demands, new approach, a strategic depth towards this, by convincing US, otherwise, by convincing Iran once again to initiate pipeline, as well as, that through Chabahar port, that bypassing Pakistan and entering into, that, the very, the Afghanistan otherwise, for the, that north-south, corridor to reach that, connectivity. And also, that bringing peace in the Afghanistan region. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that, and also balancing how we are going to cope up with, the very rise of Eurasia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. Yes, it is not only that, So the way forward also talks, especially, that the Secretary of West External Affairs Ministry is its statement, even the previous statement, of course, that Mr. Vikas Swarup we are talking about, it's an opportunity, SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that the very host we are going to be India, that the heads of, the governments, meeting we are talking about, it's an opportunity to contribute in a substantive way on the trade and economic agenda of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the very statement made by official. And that will be the main, that mandate in the summit. Of course, it talks about trade and economic agenda, more than politics, more than security. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So not only that, so this opportunity, of course, gives us another, entity, the renewed momentum in building regional synergies. Instead of getting divided, let's join together. Let's make a pool of, the resource of energy we are talking about by bloc is reflected in addressing common security challenge and building long-term economic and energy linkages. Ladies and gentlemen. So not only that, India has been strongly pushing for connectivity projects, especially as I told you earlier, the international north-south transport corridor to gain access especially to the resource-rich and tapped potential of Central Asian countries. 22nd century is going to be for Eurasia, especially the Central Asia. How prepared we are. Ladies and gentlemen, see the visionary China, that of course, forget about that Uyghur Muslims, that threat. It laid roadmap there itself. Of course, it is Chinese-led entity. In what way we are going to catch up, this particular developmental mechanism. So this optimism is also stems from India's desire to deepen its Eurasian partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to get connected. That not only Central Asia, of course, the rise of Eurasia, how we are going to cope up with Eurasian partnership. That is a global political shift we are talking about, right? It is Joseph Nye, part of Harvard University. He spoke about, that the global political order shift. Even, you would have watched the TED Talks, you will come to know more. Ladies and gentlemen, so Shanghai Cooperation Organization provides a springboard for India, the launching pad to reconnect to this, extended neighborhood. And we are bound by, that enduring bonds, ladies and gentlemen, enduring bonds of centuries of common history. That's what we are talking about. So the great cultural linkages, we are talking about historical linkages. So we have to utilize that umbilical cord connectivity. And it should be utilized as launching pad, ladies and gentlemen, launching pad we are talking about. It is that way. So India hopes to play a constructive role in spite of the difficulty, in spite of the divisive nature on the part of the neighborhood threats, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is the very China, especially in enriching the agenda of Shanghai Cooperation Organization and placing human beings as the center of thought and action. Forget about, that all these measures. The human face. Otherwise, in every budget after budget presentation, opposition parties will be accusing the budget. Budget lacks human face. See, this slogan you witness in the international fora also. We have to play constructive role because united we stand, divided we fall. And this particular, that entity Shanghai Cooperation can act as, a launching pad, springboard for establishing connectivity with the extended neighborhood, especially Central Asia. And also the very constructive role instead of criticizing each other and bringing down. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about, especially we have to, for that, the human beings, this is fantastic developments we are talking about. It's not mere law, more than law, ethics, of course, that benefits humanity. Humanity kept, that it is not mere economic development, concomitant social development we are talking about. It is not economic development, the balancing environmental standards we are talking about. Even the human development index we are talking about, mere economic development to, there should be a shift in, that emphasis from mere economic development to concomitant social development. Not only that, when poverty was calculated in terms of mere economic terms, ladies and gentlemen, it has become multifaceted, multidimensional poverty index, according to Oxford, we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This phase, the world is, world as one family. Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So, and also where, that India's, the superpower status with other nations. For that, we have to use this, that we have to, India should have its own leverage. Otherwise, by playing constructive role, proactive role, no more defensive policy. All these problems, in what way we can protect? This is defensive in nature. That's what happened in the past in terms of strategic autonomy. So we observe, we infuse energy, we participate, we play proactive role so that we become global player, Vishwaguru, with other superpowers, so as to create multipolar world. For that, that you have to go beyond national sentiments in terms of parochial, political consideration, economic consideration, security consideration. You go beyond that, beyond all these clutches, to embrace the whole humanity. What benefits the whole humanity? Maybe, you can address in terms of how we all these, that member nations can meet that, the sustainable development goals within 2030 at least. In what way, that nations can, help each other. As we said, that, and youth, focusing on youth, because India's, that the strength, youngest country in the aging world, population dividend, our youth, should not be spoiled. Especially that's what the cry in Delhi, Punjab region and all. And even the northeastern states, all terrorist outfits, that using the drug trafficking as to finance their, the centrifugal tendencies. But that is a scenario. In what way we can engage this, Central Asia to go against, opium trade, drug trafficking, bringing peace. Of course, we failed, to some extent. It's not we failed, on the whole, SAARC failed. At least this is a wonderful opportunity for India to play constructive role, as it is, that already emphasizing, and to keep, that human face in the agenda, ladies and gentlemen. And thought, it's not mere, that agenda. In thoughts and actions, it's not mere thinking in that line. Performing also, it should be matched by, that the realistic terms, actions. Action speaks louder than words. Performance, it's not mere preaching. Ladies and gentlemen, that will foster a greater prosperity and well-being of the region. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the way forward we are talking about. We are looking forward. And not only that, what are all the resources, that we can consult? If you ask me, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are keep on emphasizing this particular point. Of course, the editorials of the Hindu and Indian Express especially. Parallelly, whenever you find time, please watch the Rajya Sabha TV debates. Even Frontlines, of course, the Frontline magazine also you can refer if possible. And also have the habit of, that reading in your free time especially. The books of, that all the celebrated authors, David Malone, even Sashi Tharoor, even see Raja Mohan, you get complete picture. Raja Mohan is especially Modi's World. David Malone, that will the elephant dance we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So the very agenda towards from defensive to, of course, proactive policy, to be Vishwaguru, global player, to create multipolar world. That is the agenda. You witness the theater may differ, the concept never changes. And very vigorous, that policy, the India, that in diplomatic front, especially personal touch, the retail diplomacy, that by Prime Minister Modi ji, definitely it's fetching, that lot of results, and we are looking forward to see more in the future too with other, that entities in the future session also, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is right time, probably, that my interaction with you, our interaction otherwise, would have benefited you much in terms of understanding this, that the Asian, that regional organization, especially began with Central Asia, ladies and gentlemen, especially on political, economic, as well as, that strategic affairs, the positive story we spoke, that the anti-terrorism structure, in what way India can play constructive role by keeping, human face in thinking as well as, actions in the mind, to create a multipolar world, and also to establish peace in the Afghanistan, ladies and gentlemen, and also to engage, to tap the untapped potential of Central Asia, and also cope up with, that the very Eurasian, that rise we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful platform. So we have to utilize that umbilical connectivity, umbilical cord connectivity we had in the past. I think this is right time, ladies and gentlemen. And also, that hitherto, welcome to Unacademy once again. Hitherto, the success Sampath interacted with you. I think you can also reach me in the Telegram channel, especially even in the YouTube, that part of Unacademy. Even the special sessions available in the Unacademy platform itself. You can download Unacademy app and use my ID as Success Sampath or Sampath Iruvengidam, and use my referral code, say Success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Please go for iconic program that benefits you more, ladies and gentlemen. And wishing you all the very best and best of luck. And we'll meet, that in another video with another purpose that enriches, that your understanding and fetches you more marks so that you become officer soon. And wish you all the very best, ladies and gentlemen. Signing off. This is Success Sampath. Good night.